Ye ka kire mu say NPP for we behind sa container we Asɛm na krono ana ekoso andananado ewo ECG hono na enye krono keto we keti abebriefie ewo ho. And I just want us to read, then we see. You see, NPP for we want mudi boni we are, then they want to divert it. Sano mutie. Mudi boni we are, they want to divert it. Omako said you penny boni ya watan ewe nipam. Watan pao nso no dia sha kwada penny. Sana NPP tie. They do the thing and later divert it. Tiadie. Brief. During the transition period, the outgone NPP government told the new NDC government that there were 3,000 ECG containers stuck at the airport. Answer na NPP be hand over no. Omo ka kire ye say 3,000 ECG containers and na aka tema port. That's what they said. 3,000 ECG containers. The Minister of Energy, upon his visit to the port, was told by the port officials that the containers were not 3,000 as the handing over note suggested. Instead, the total number was 2,500. Baby, a chrono starting yeniu. Chrono a process. NPP for handing over in their handing over notes. Almost say 3,000 ECG containers na Waterma port. Minister of Energy, Jina Poso Koye no na 2,500 containers. Alarmed by this development, the minister ordered for a committee to be formed to investigate the actual number of containers stuck at the port in the name of ECG. Why the many suspected procurement breaches at ECG. And say yet you committee say the NPP, knowing the crime they had committed, quickly resorted to social media through their boss, creating a false narrative. False narrative. False narrative that the containers only went missing after the NDC took over office. Number 2, the committee, before they began their work, had 3,000 containers as the figure the government gave the transition period. They contacted Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority on the actual number of containers at the port, and the figure Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority gave was 1,132. And say, if you shall ba munu, you say Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority so as mo be kan and say 1,132 containers na newo. The ECG numbers they have. The ECG numbers they have the committee as the total number of containers was 2,462. When the committee finally did its own counting of the containers at the port, they had 1,132, a figure that well collaborated with that of Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority. Tino be a doubty. Continue mushishe munu emuse ampa containers a 1,132. Abrana, yes, say or muhandi over no 3,000 containers na Waterma Harbour. Comparing this figure to ECG, it means 1,328 containers as captured by ECG documents could not be accounted for by ECG. You see? Then you come here. From that point, containers and materials ECG has imported began piling up at the port. In a short period, the containers stuck at the port were in thousands. The Materials and Transport Department informed the management and the board about this development and how the containers are attracting demurrage. Management said they had no money to clear the containers. However, at the time they said they had no money to clear the minister containers at the port, they were still importing hundreds of containers and were paying suppliers about 90% of the contract sum. In the midst of this, the containers at the port had attracted a demurrage sum in excess of 1.5 million cedis. The Materials and Transport Department wrote to Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority that they needed a discount on their piled up containers to be able to clear them. Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority approved their request, but when the Transport and Material Department of ECG again informed management about it, the management led by Dubik Mahama as managing director and Kelly Gadzeko as board chair said ECG were broke and had no money, so the containers should remain at the port. From nowhere, Dubik Mahama, the managing director of ECG, introduced two companies to the managing director of ECG as the From nowhere, Dubik Mahama, the managing director of ECG, introduced two companies to ECG as the companies he has selected to clear the containers on behalf of ECG without any competitive tendering. The companies were Mint Logistics and Davos Bond Limited. Interestingly, Mint Logistics has 10 workers and Davos Bond Limited has just 1 worker, according to our detailed investigation of these companies. Mint Logistics was tasked to clear 1,110 containers, where the ECG paid them 160,000. In the case of Davos Bond Limited, they were awarded a contract to clear 200 of the containers at the port, and each container was cleared at 115,000 cedis, meaning they also had 23 million cedis as contract sum. Even with this, ECG never slowed down importing containers. They import the containers, staff their transport and material department of funds to clear the containers. The containers attract demurrage. They then award single-sourced contracts to some mushroom clearing agents companies to clear the containers. They steal the majority of the containers, and those that remain at the port mostly have their content equally stolen. The cables are sold to Chinese and Indian companies here in Ghana. They buy, melt, and export these new cables, and then ECG goes back to import new cables, and the cycle continues in that manner. Then you come here. The procurement scam at ECG under NPP. In 2022, the value planned procurement of ECG was 1.7 billion cedis. The value of the actual procurement was 460 million cedis. Hence, the deviation from the planned procurement was 1.3 billion cedis. In 2013, the value planned procurement of ECG was 935 million cedis. The value of actual procurement was 8.3 billion cedis. The deviation from the planned procurement was in excess of over 7 billion cedis. In 2024, the value planned procurement of ECG was 1.3 billion cedis. The value of actual procurement was 8.2 billion cedis. The deviation from the planned procurement was 6.8 billion cedis. In the quest to perpetuate this procurement crime, they collapsed the procurement department of ECG by merging it with the estate department. Let's go. Then we move to number 7. They removed the head of procurement at the ECG and in return made the head of ECG, the head of estate of ECG, the head of 2 merged departments. The new head of the 2 merged departments, however, has no knowledge of procurement. This is why the value of actual procurement in 2023 and 2024 was higher than the value of planned procurement. This is a well-rehearsed crime that has gone on in the last 8 years, mostly between 2017 and 2024, December. This is breakdown NPP ECG stolen container scam. Note, during this period of this scam at the ECG, Dr. Matthew Peku Prempe Napo was the energy minister. Dubik Mahama was the managing director. Kelly Gazekpo was the board chairman, was the board chairman of ECG. Afenyo Markin took over later as the board chair of the ECG before NPP's historic defeat. So you see, that is the reason why a case we buy, Afenyo Markin say my politicize it because on him say ni dinwo. So you see, that is why a case we buy, Afenyo Markin say more can say we shouldn't politicize it. Sa ni dinwo, and the sam crofo we na. Chrono also. And the NDC for mu investigative matter no NPP for ye jandam say your muna bia containers no in 3 months as government. Abra ye se chrono no started last year. To where ye jandam kesia ya kili. NPP ni jina baby e ka kire so mu bia NDC for ni mu bia ka kire so fa ni jimi enko. These are the facts. First, you see 3,000 containers. You will shame now 1,200 and 200. You will shame 1,300 containers. Hey, Ghana, you're lucky by voting these people out. I'm telling you.